Okay, we're continuing in Sefer Shoftim, Perek Daled. We're just finished Pasuk Zayin. Just to recap here, the Jews are under the servitude of Yavin, the king of Canaan. His general is Sisera, and they are based in a place called Charoshes Hagoyim. Dvorah now is the new savior. She is the prophetess. She is also one of the greatest scholars in the generation. She's judging the people, and she calls for her husband Baruch ben Avinoam, who is in a place called Kedesh in Naphtali, and she says, hasn't Hashem commanded you now to pull troops from Har Tavor and take with you 10,000 troops from Shevet Naphtali and Shevet Zevulun? Well, that's where we ended off. So the question is, why Naphtali and Zevulun? Why would these tribes be the ones, as we will see, that will successfully battle against Yavin, the king of Canaan? So the Tanat Ve'Eliyahu, one of the Midrashim, asks the question, and he says, Manishtana Zvulun v'Naftali mikol hashvatim. How are Zvulun and Naphtali different from all the tribes? Shabbos Shua Gedoli Yisrael Ayoran, that a great salvation came to their hands. And he quotes the pasuk that we just read. So Kach Amru Chacham, this is what our rabbis tell us. Naphtali Shimesh es Yaakov Avinu. Naphtali served Yaakov. V'yaksa b'menu koras ruach, and Yaakov had satisfaction from that. Uzvulun Shimesh es Yisachar, and Zvulun served Yisachar. And provided him lodging. So the commentary explains on the Tanat Ve'Eliyahu, what does that mean? So Naphtali, as we said yesterday, that when Esav would refuse burial for Yaakov, so Naphtali was the one who would run back to Mitzrayim to find the deed of sale for the pot of beans. So he brought it back to prove that his portion was in the Marsal Fela. So he gave a satisfaction to Yaakov because Esav wouldn't let him get buried. So even though Yaakov was not alive by then, but he was willing to do that. And Yisachar provided Achsanya, as we know, the famous partnership that existed between Yisachar and Zvulun. Yisachar would sit and learn Torah all day long, and Zevulun supported him. So he enabled him to be able to learn. So, how does that fit in over here? So we understand that what did these two people do? What were they doing that was really so amazing? The answer is they were enabling others to have what they needed. Yaakov needed to be buried in the Marsal Fela. Everybody else is standing around. Esav's not letting it happen. They're standing around. They don't know what to do. So, people got to do what you got to do. So at least Zvulun said, okay, I'll run and get the deed. Oh, if they bring the deed, that will prove that he should be buried here. And more importantly, with Zevulun over here, and that Zvulun, he is supporting Yisachar in the learning of Torah. So, specific, more so in Zevulun, but you see both aspects. So, what is Zvulun in relationship to Yisachar? He is the feminine aspect of Torah. What's the feminine aspect of Torah? Where do women fit into all this Torah learning? Well, the woman is supposed to be the Eishes Chayil of Torah by supporting Torah, like females are supposed to do. And how is that? By enabling men to learn Torah. So therefore, that is the female aspect of Torah, that they enable, allow these things to happen. And the Gemara says, greater is the one who causes someone to do a mitzvah than the one who does the mitzvah himself. And certainly, it's harder, because at least if you're doing a mitzvah, you at least get surrounded by the aura of the mitzvah, and you enjoy the mitzvah. And learning Torah, when one is on the right level, is an enjoyable pursuit. working hard, making money to support someone is not really enjoyable, because it's no fun. It's a curse. It's by the sweat of your brow you will eat your bread. So you're going through the actions of a curse to enable the other person to be able to learn Torah. That is a very, very difficult thing to do. And it takes a person with special qualities to be able to, quote unquote, endure the hardships of the work that's necessary to provide the wherewithal for the other person to be involved in the most beautiful of pursuits, and that is of learning Torah. So, who's got that quality? That's the female, that's the Bina again. The husband who's learning Torah, that's the Chachma. He's using the Chachma to learn the Torah. And, but the Bina is saying, well, listen, Mevin Dover, Mitov Dover, understanding one thing from another. And saying, listen, learning Torah is great, but somebody has to provide and create the atmosphere for the other guy to learn Torah. If I give my husband all the jobs of running the house, then how is he ever going to learn any Torah? So the wife takes on all the lion's share of that, and is happy to do it. The Eishes Chayil is happy to do it. There's my new motto. It's very unpolitically correct, but why not? It keeps saying because of the merit of righteous women, the Jews have been redeemed. So nobody ever implies the opposite, which is clearly, if they're not redeemed, it's because of wicked women we haven't been redeemed. So I'm not saying, there are some righteous women in the world, no question about it, but the majority of Jewish women are not righteous, plain and simple. If they were, we'd have the Geula. Okay, so the few that come and learn Torah and appreciate Torah, unfortunately isn't enough righteous women amongst us to turn the tide. If there isn't Mashiach, too many women who are wicked. And what's a wicked woman? A wicked woman is pushing the husbands to make money, get involved in making bigger houses, bigger this, bigger that. And the husband's got no time to sit and learn. Plain and simple. A woman, Nashim Sitkarios, means I don't need anything. I just need you to learn Torah. That's the most important thing. And whatever it takes, you should be learning Torah. My children should be learning Torah. Because this is what it's all about. At the end of the day, this is what it's all about. I don't need a fancy house. I don't need anything. As long as I have a husband learning Torah, that's going to that's all that matters. You have to live in this world. We'll make do with it, with what we have. But I don't insist on anything. That is Nashim Tzidkanios. Okay, we're pretty far away from that. Even the people learning in Kollel are very far away from that, because only if they have good fat salaries and have all the conveniences of life, then they're willing to sit in Kollel. So,
and they look for a rich father.
And they're looking for a rich father-in-law. I'm just saying, we're missing the whole boat over here. So the point being, because the way it really is, the real way it is it's physically hard, it's physically challenging. There isn't a lot of physical benefits or perks, but you're dedicating your life for that. That takes a lot of Bina Yisera. A lot of Bina Yisera. To look beneath, everybody else has a fancy this, everybody else has a fancy that, and to, like Rachel and Rabbi Akiva, giving up everything. There's a saying out there, behind every Rabbi Akiva there has to be a Rachel. These stories that we learn, they're not just cute stories. Well, that's a very nice story. It's interesting. That's what we're supposed to emulate. Right? Rachel was the daughter of Nakdimon Ben Gurion, who was the richest man around. The richest man around. She was raised in the lap of luxury. And she saw Rabbi Akiva had the potential to be a great scholar, and needed the right Eishes Chayil to make him into a scholar. Right? So what did she do? She said, Father, I want to marry this guy. This guy. She says, what? That doesn't suit our family. He comes from converts. He's a nobody. What are you talking about over here? So she said, no, he's the one. She says, no, if you're going to do that, I'm going to cut you off.
And he was not good looking.
I'm going to cut you off. I don't know about that. Okay, maybe. I'm going to cut you off. So he says, fine. So he cut her off. So now they were living on nothing, like mamish, sleeping on straw. in abject poverty, and then she sends away to yeshiva. She doesn't even get to see him very much. But he's the one who brought Torah Shebaal Peh into the world. He's the one who brought it. It changed the face of Yiddishkeit. Why? Because he had a Rachel. So she was willing. Bina Yisera says it doesn't matter how difficult it is. The goal is much more important. So that's where it comes from. So if you need a salvation in this tkufa, and again, all the Chazal seem to indicate, the deeper mystical Chazal seem to indicate, everything around this is the battle for Torah Shebaal Peh. This is where all the oral law, the roots of the oral law that will eventually come, is from this story. So if you're able to put out for others, you're able to do that. It's interesting as well. Zevulun was also the portion. Zevulun was by the coast. So the Gemara says that Zvulun was the shevet that provided the chilazon fish, from which the blue dye that is on the strands of the tzitzis were necessary. They were the ones who provided it. So what does that have to do with anything? Well, if you remember the Gemara in Shabbos, the Gemara tells us that the whole point of having the blue thread is you look at your tzitzis in the morning and you notice the difference between the white and the blue reminds you of the what?
Right.
No, step away. First it reminds you of the ocean, which is blue, and then the blue ocean meets the sky, reminds you of the sky, and that reminds you of the Kisei HaKavod, the throne of glory. That's such a, so many steps removed. You got to do that. But that's what Yiras Shamayim is all about. Yiras Shamayim isn't God and his dagger and his lightning bolt staring you in the face. It's listen, I got this, reminds me of this, reminds me of this, reminds me of that, and then up to Yiras Shamayim. In other words, everything in my life connects back to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. That's the same idea. In order to be the person who supports Torah and enables others and isn't the direct beneficiary of what's going on over here. Yeah, it's great. A guy sits and learning, it looks like he has a great life. If he's really learning Rambams like you're learning in Gemara, for how hard it is for you, okay, you should know a real scholar, it's hard for him too, but in much harder realms. You guys are struggling just to understand the Gemara. And some Gemaras are hard. You're not even looking in Rashi and Tosfos, the commentaries, this and that. And once you get there, it's like your mind can explode from all the information, and it becomes much harder because there's many more factors that aren't making sense. So it's really, but you look superficial. He's sitting and doing nothing a whole day long, right? But really, it's very hard work. But it is still, at the end of the day, still very rewarding, and we'll see shortly, very enjoyable. When you're at that level. In the beginning, it's not, but when you get to that, very enjoyable.
No, it is in the beginning.
What?
It is in the beginning, dude.
Yeah, but I'm saying that it's hard work, but it's enjoyable hard work. At the end of the day, you are learning Torah, and it is God's word, and you get connected to God. It is very enjoyable. The person supporting you isn't getting that enjoyment. It's always a problem in young married kolo couples where the husband's having a great time and the wife's miserable. The wife's miserable. She's the one changing the diaper. She's the one taking care of the kids. She's the one doing this. And quite often, husbands take for granted the wife, what she's doing. And that's why they try to train young guys to recognize what the wife is doing, and to even if they're not helping so much, but to recognize and show how much they appreciate, which is also important. But that's the struggle. So that's the Bini Yisera says, okay, I'm willing to sacrifice myself for the benefit of the whole. That's Bini Yisera. So that's what we're seeing over here with the tzitzis. It's like you gotta make the connections. In other words, when she's changing the diapers and she's doing the shopping and cleaning the house, so what's that? Well, because now you got to start making the steps. Now, Bini Yisera, because I have a husband who's sitting and learning, and the husband sitting and learning is creating all kinds of spiritual energies that's coming into the world. That's the greatest chesed for the whole world, and he's becoming great in Torah, and we'll have children who'll be great in Torah, and God's honor illuminates through the world. Now it makes sense that I should be changing the diapers. So that's the chalazon. It's tracing the steps. When you're doing the grungy work in the kitchen, You have to have in front of your mind, but look what kind of Torah is being learned. And without my changing the diapers and doing the kitchen, there is no Torah going to be learned. And it's just as important, even though I'm not in the thick of the Torah learning. So that's what these tribes are bringing out. And that's what has to happen to defeat such a Yovin. Yeah?
I was going to say, with the woman doing all the household and activities and the man learning, who's supposed to be earning the income to support that?
Or the woman too.
But isn't that a contradiction with the ketubah?
No.
Don't we have a get?
What?
Don't we have a
Again, the ketubah is for regular people.
Oh, so you're just talking about the...
Listen, again, you look at the great people in Torah. They didn't,
okay.
I mean, or let's reverse it. And those who did work, how long did they work a day?
That's the point.
How long did they work a day? A couple hours?
That's the point.
But you look, Chafetz Chaim, did Chafetz Chaim work? His wife had the store.
Did he work?
But hardly. Who opened the store? His wife opened the store. The store was in the house.
So you're only talking about Torah scholars, though.
I'm talking great Torah scholars, or for whatever time it is to be a Torah scholar. Guys sitting in Kollel for 5 years, 6 years, 7 years, whatever, till he'll go out and teach Torah. He's not, Again, if everyone could live with less, you wouldn't have to work so much. It's being able to live with less. That's Torah, that's Eretz Yisrael, that's Olam Haba, all these things. You have to learn to live with much less. Right? You hear all these stories. Again, people they have one suit, that's all they wore every day, finished. And because it's all not important. At the end of the day, it's not important. To have that focus is difficult. It's difficult. Getting into the details, who's going to work, that's not the issue over here. The issue is to learn to live.
To learn a critical portion of supporting the family. Someone's got to do it.
I understand, but here's the problem. Everyone views it as the critical portion. The critical portion is how much Torah is going to be learned.
If every wife said to her husband,
then we
can do less. We can do with less. I want you to learn Torah.
If every wife said, I don't need a house, we can live in an apartment all our lives. And it's my greatest pleasure. It's my greatest pleasure that you should sit and learn Torah.
That's amazing.
Okay? And I don't need to have a date night, and I don't need for you to buy me things, and I don't need anything. I just need you to come home and bring home the Torah. And if women were raised that way, the generation would be different. Now, to legislate that, we can't. And in halacha, you won't find that. Remember, you never legislate righteousness. You legislate averageness. So we legislate. The husband has to provide for the wife. The husband has the ksuva. And if you want to be average, this is the way to be average. Okay? If you want to be great, then we can't legislate this. Then this is what it takes to be great. This is what it takes to be great. At least you need leaders who are great.
Oh wait, so a man that says, I want to be great, so I'll learn Torah and you support me, is going contrary to what is ketubah, that he signs.
Well, so before he gets married, he says before he goes out with anyone, he says, I'm only interested in a woman that wants this. If she doesn't want this, I'm not going to go out with her.
But he's still signing the ketubah that says, I'll support you.
Okay. Again, this is a rabbinic formality. You sign things, and then there's verbal understandings. Or, very simple, the father-in-law gives him a lot of money, and from that he can support her. Father-in-law says, here's $200,000. It's yours. Now you have a ksuva. Now go support her, or whatever it is. Or remember, all it says is you're willing to give the shirt off your back. I'm going to take it the best I can. But the way I'm going to, there's the Pashut way of learning it, and then there's the mystical way of reading that ksuva. There's basically the ksuva really says, if we get divorced, I have a heavy payout. Remember, the whole reason the ksuva came into being, the real reason the ksuva is there, is so women shouldn't be treated like dirt, and you just can't flippantly divorce a woman, because if you do it, there's a heavy price to pay to divorce a woman. That's the real reason the ksuva was put in. It really wasn't put in, and the idea of supporting her and all this. If you look at the things that is clear in the ksuva, is the payout. The support while you're there, it's very general terms.
But if you have no assets to pay out, there's nothing to pay.
So fine, it's
nothing.
very, so
you can't lose.
let's put it this way, but whatever you will make, you'll have to pay it out. She'll always be first creditor for the rest of your life. And if a guy's not into learning, usually people get divorced, it's usually money is the reason why people are getting divorced. The guy's got money, usually. I mean, money is the problem most of the time, so usually you got money. We're getting caught up in the details. The main thing that the Kshuva says, I'm going to treat my wife the way a Jewish woman is supposed to be treated. You know how a Jewish woman is supposed to be treated? The husband's supposed to learn Torah. That's how you support your wife. You support your wife through the Torah that you're being learning in the house. That's the biggest bracha in the house. So it's vague. It's written vague how you support. It doesn't say I bring home food, I bring home money. It's not there in the Kshuva. It says I will support her, I will take care of her as Jewish husbands should. So I don't know, how do Jewish husbands do it? Let's take a look and see what's out there. Depends what kind of Jewish husband you are. But the point is, before you go out with any woman, you say, this is the type of lifestyle I want to lead. And I'm looking for the kind of woman who wants, I want to sacrifice my life, and I'm looking for another woman who wants to. And if the two aren't similar, they shouldn't go out. So you don't turn around one day and say, I decided now not to work the rest of my life. If you were a kind of guy who does work. But we're talking about greatness here. You're talking about greatness, and you have to have, at least in the leadership, you have to have that greatness. If everybody's average, that's what we learned a couple of weeks ago. If everybody's average, there's no leadership, you go down the drain. It's a ripple effect.
Even average can go up.
Yeah, average can go up too.
Average can go up by every woman saying, I need less. What I need more than anything is all your spirit.
So Devorah asked these two because of these reasons. That's it? There were no other tribes? Naphtali and Zebulun, they were the only ones?
These were the tribes that reflected what needed to happen most here.
Because it wasn't because of the armies they had or anything like that?
Again, we'll see in a minute, the armies were useless.
Yeah.
Remember, you're going against 900 tanks, right? You can't fight that. You'll see in a minute when we get into the war. There was no war at all. I mean, they get killed, the enemies, but not because of the Jews. So there's nothing to do with it. Never really, very rare. It had to do with any real physical strength, and even that physical strength came from Hashem. It all came from Hashem. So that's the issues over here. So really, if we go back a couple verses, so what Devorah is saying, we have to make ample preparations for salvation. So the Malbim says she made there were four things in place in order for the salvation to happen. Number one was what we learned in Pasuk Gimel, I think, or Beis, that the Jewish people cried out to Hashem. That's number one. The Jews will have to cry out to Hashem. There has to be some kind of tefillah. If the Jews are oppressed, they don't cry out to Hashem, forget, that's number one. Number two, we're introduced to Devorah, right, who merited to have prophecy, which other saviors did not have that beforehand, right? And the fact that she was Ashes Lapidos, and she had all the qualities that she had. In other words, a great leader was on the table here. That was item number two. Item number three is that she worked on improving the people by being the shofetes, the judge over the people. So that was number three, and was improving the quality of the people, of the masses. And number four, the merit of the Jewish people, where in the past the Shoftim would have to go to the people to judge them, but here she stood under the tree, and they came to her. Vayalu eleha b'nei Yisrael l'mishpat. The Jewish people understood her greatness, and therefore they themselves were willing to come up to her, which gives them a merit that they themselves were inspired by her, but they still will make the effort to go to her to know what they have to do, right? And that's why the rabbis told us that Chazal, that just like the date palm only has one heart for Hashem, so do the Jewish people have one heart for Hashem. She's able to work on them, that they develop that kind of attitude. So a lot of good things were in place, and therefore you have the ability, the salvation is starting to fall into place. Okay, let's move on to Pasuk Zayin now. So now we got all this background into place. So she says to her husband Barak, says, pull the troops down from the mountain. Pull them from Har Tavor. Umashachti elecha el nachal Kishon es Sisra sar tzava. And I will, through my spiritual powers, draw down to you into the valley of Kishon, Sisra the general, Yovin ves Richbo, Yovin and all his chariots, ves Hamono and their masses, Unesatio biyadecha, and I will give him to you into your hands. So, Dvorah is telling this all to Barak. And what the Malbim explains, this is all with Hashkachas Hashem. In other words, Hashem will bring this, and he says, B'derech Nes, in a miraculous way. In other words, think about what's going to happen over here. You guys are going to be gathering up in the mountain of Tavor. Well, I will cause in the mind of the general that he should take all his troops, number one, to go where? Nachal Kishon, the valley of Kishon. Now, if you're a military strategist, where's it better for you to be fighting a battle? In the mountain or in the valley? In the mountain. So they're going to see the Jews in the mountain, and they're going to go into the valley. I will draw him into the valley. In other words, through my prayers, whatever, Yad Lev Malachim B'Yad Hashem. The heart of kings is in the hand of Hashem.